All right, so AFC North. We can start or finish with your team, whichever. I know you probably have a lot to say.
Let's start with the. I feel like we need to start with the division winners.
Okay.
Personally, the Cincinnati
Look at
Bengals.
you tipping
the Super
tipping your
Bowls.
hat.
I mean, I think it's fair. We started with the Bengals last. I feel like it's only right to start with the reigning champs. So
All right, reigning
obviously,
AFC
reigning
champions.
AFC champions. Made to the Super Bowl. Beating the Chiefs in Kansas City in the AFC title game.
Yep.
In
Vegas.
A lot of Joe Burrow love throughout the offseason. A couple. A little bit of MVP talk for him as well.
I agree. I think he's a sleeper for MVP.
I think he is a sleeper. I just think that team is so good that I don't think he's going to individually stand out so much. I think there's just going to be games where Joe Mixon runs for like 150 yards and Joe goes for like 180. And it's it statistically doesn't look impressive, but
his receiving core is also extremely fast.
Instinct. And it's an incredibly talented receiving core. Jamar Chase, I think, is top 5 in fantasy this year, if I'm not mistaken, if not higher.
I'd take that.
I drafted him actually in the first round. So I've got Jamar Chase.
You also have T. Higgins who's coming off.
I have him in fantasy as well. I have him in fantasy as well.
Yeah, you're on. You need the Bengals.
T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. Yeah. It's an insanely talented offensive team.
Yeah.
The line has improved. It is still, I would not say, a top 10 offensive line in football. I don't particularly think it's the best offensive line in the division, but we will move on to that in a bit.
So I have a weird feeling like the Bengals' success, like it just peaked at the perfect time. And it also helped that the Ravens got hurt. Steelers are not what the Steelers were. However, Tomlin is always going to lead a good team, tough team. There's just a part of me that's like, okay, you did it. You got there. Now let's see it again.
Right.
I
think for them, a lot of people think that it was an early peak. For me,
I agree.
I think that they just got there a year early. I wouldn't necessarily call it a peak. I think that it's a little bit unfair, especially because it's such a young team still that I think is going to continually improve. So I think it's a little bit unfair to say that they peaked early. I think that they just were in the Super Bowl a year probably before they were supposed to be.
I would say it's an accurate assessment, but I think they were probably a year ahead of schedule.
But I still like a lot of what they've done this offseason. I still like a lot of the talent on the team. The main thing that concerns me and is the reason why I'm not picking them to win the division this year is they have, I believe, the 4th hardest strength of schedule in the league, according to last year's, records. Obviously, that's going to fluctuate a little bit because all the teams last year are not going to be as good or as bad as they are this year. But just looking at it from a surface level, obviously, division winners always play a tougher schedule in comparison to the rest.
Yeah.
So I think that could be one thing that does hurt them a little bit. And then I think that the other thing is just going to be positive regression from the rest of the division because everything went so wrong for every team in that division. I think that some of it is bound to just kind of even out a little bit. And so I think you're going to see a lot of positive regression from the rest of that division. I think they swept both Baltimore and Cleveland last year, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I don't envision that happening again this year. So I do think they make the playoffs. I have them at about around 10, 11 wins, but I think they finished second to the team we're about to speak to now.
They're a team I definitely have a wildcard spot for.
Without a
lot of doubt.
I have zero doubt both the two teams in the division, Baltimore and Cincy, I have no doubt they both make the playoffs. I think that a third team could potentially make it, but I'm not as confident. Yeah. With those two, I have zero doubts that obviously barring any injuries or, their quarterbacks or whatever, I think they'll be there. So
yeah, I can agree with that. Who did you want to do next? Do you want to do the Steelers?
Well, I said the team that I predicted was going to be next, so I guess we'll go with Baltimore. Okay. We'll get into them next.
All right.
I'll start. I feel like I've spoken first. Well, how are you feeling about them? How are you feeling about Cincy first, actually? You didn't say anything about Cincy.
Well, first of all, I want to mention the indoor practice stadium.
Oh, yes.
Because this has been lobbied by so many people this offseason. And I know that you have a little bit of a counter argument. I think it's huge. Again, being one of those teams where you play up north, you have to be able to play and throw a football in the cold. You got to be able to make tackles, things like that. It's important to have a balance, right? I think it just allows you to scheme better. When it's raining and it's snowing, you probably should get a practice or two in there, but also be able to go inside and not get hypothermia, to an extent. And now I know.
I mean, most teams do have indoor facilities.
No,
every team does.
They're the only team that didn't have one.
Yeah.
So they always had to use the University of Cincinnati's indoor stadium, which is crazy. That was actually not crazy.
Well, technically the Steelers don't have one too because they share with Pitt, but I believe Pitt pays for that facility, if I'm not mistaken.
You'd be surprised. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not surprising considering the amount of money in college sports.
Oh,
you know,
without a shadow.
It's
of
just
doubt.
a whole different business.
Yeah,
it's just a whole
without a shadow of a doubt.
So what's your counter argument to that then?
No, it's just my whole thing is because when it was first announced, when it was first presented to me and reported, I was under the impression that they were going to be exclusively training indoors. Which, if that is the case, I think is a horrible idea. Yeah. If you play in Cincinnati and you have to play in Baltimore, in Pittsburgh, and in Cleveland in just your division alone.
Yeah.
I can agree with that. Let alone, the other up north, the Jets, the Patriots, all the other teams that play up north. So when it was presented to me, I initially thought that was a thing. Now learning that they're just building an indoor facility to have, I obviously have no issue with that. I think it's important that every team has one.
Yeah.
The fact they didn't is a little bit surprising, but I mean, they don't exactly have an owner who loves to splurge, so it doesn't surprise me. Which is also why I think the Joe Burrow contract talks in about a year or two are going to be incredibly interesting. But
100%. I think the whole roster top to bottom.
It's gonna be very difficult.
That's why I say is if they do it again, it's going to make things a lot more interesting.
For sure.
Now, can I throw a hot take your way?
Go for it.
I think Joe Burrow can become a top 3 quarterback this year.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
I think they just have an offense. Now, I know they have holes on their offensive line. I understand that. I just think that they made the Super Bowl in, we can kind of argue a year ahead of schedule. I just think that you can only go up from here. I think they can only get better and learn. They beat the 2 top seeds in 1 Tennessee and then 2 Kansas City in order to make the Super Bowl.
Yep.
And then you play a Rams team that is
Tennessee
just really
game was
fucking
a little fake
good
too, but it's okay.
Well, I'm not a huge Tennessee Titan believer, and I wasn't. It wasn't last year, and now they only beat them by 3 points? I think it was. Yeah, 19-16. I'm not huge on the Titans, but I just think more chemistry with Higgins, Boyd, Chase. I just think we're gonna see this kid grow.
Yeah,
and I think, funny enough, we all love him now. Flash forward 5 years, I guarantee he's the most hated quarterback. I guarantee it. I'm telling you right now. Just like Brady. Now, me too. I hated Brady.
No. I think you mean Rodgers is probably the better example for that.
Really? You think Rodgers?
I think Brady has come around on a lot of people.
No, that's what I'm saying.
On a lot of people.
And I was one of them.
Yeah.
But it was because I hate Boston. I'm in New York, right?
No. But
that was my thing.
But you're projecting the reverse. Joe Burrow's incredibly loved
and adored now.
Right.
Brady, sure.
Right. So I think Rodgers would be the example for that case.
Okay, yes, I can agree.
Particularly after last year with the vaccine stuff and some of the
We're gonna talk about that. Not the vaccine stuff.
Yeah. We will. I have something I want to mention that when we get to but so how do you have them finishing this year? Because I said I think they make the playoffs. I think they finish second.
They're finishing. We agree with that.
Oh, you have the same exact
no matter what.
Gotcha.
I don't think the Steelers can be better than them, and the Browns aren't going to be the Browns this year.
Gotcha.
And I'm also okay. Well, you want to go to the Browns?
Yeah, we can move on to the Browns. Yeah,
I'm not huge on Deshaun. I think they wasted their money, and this has nothing to do with the allegations or what I think of him as an individual. I just didn't see it in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see it happening in Cleveland of all places.
So when you say you don't see it, what was it that you don't see?
I just don't see him as a quarterback who can take his team to a Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl. I think we've noticed in probably the last 5 years that it just takes a little something extra. Rodgers, arguably one of the most talented quarterbacks of all time, cannot get past the NFC Championship yet. Yep. I just think you need that it factor. Yeah. That just extra little oomph that gets you past that line. And I don't think he has it.
Yeah.
And I think he's flashy, and I think it's fun to watch that. That's why it was great to see him in Clemson. And you had flashes of that in Houston. And I think he does have a little bit of a chip on his shoulder to kind of prove himself again after all this shit talking. Very warranted. But I just don't think Cleveland is the place of going to fix it, an organization. We tried this with Baker.
I think that for a situation that he had put himself into, just with the dysfunction in Houston, obviously the civil lawsuits that he was dealing with, I don't think that now going into a dysfunctional organization is the best course of action for a historically dysfunctional organization. It's not like they've just had a couple bad drafts or something, like a historically bad, poorly run organization.
Which, on paper is doing a lot better now, roster-wise. They're infinitely better than they were 7 years ago.
Roster-wise, they won their first playoff game in God knows how long. What was it, last season or 2 seasons ago?
Yeah.
But I think it was quite a bit of roster turnover. This year, obviously losing both number 1 receivers in Jarvis and Odell. I know Odell left mid-season, but Now transitioning into guy from Dallas, whose name is now slipping my mind. Receiver from Dallas. Amari Cooper. There we go. Sorry. Transitioning from those two into Amari Cooper is still an incredibly talented guy. I think there's a reason Dallas probably wanted to get rid of him, especially at that cap number as well. And I think teams like Cleveland are just historically notoriously bad at knowing when to chase after guys, knowing when to let go of guys, knowing just timing in general. When certain guys may be past it, when certain guys maybe getting off a guy a year too early or a year too late, rather. I think in terms of just general roster construction, they historically have not done a very good job. Obviously, that's changed a bit in these past 2 years. Is that going to be enough in this division to propel them into the playoffs? I don't think so.
And they also have an extra spotlight because of this whole fucking thing.
There's going to be an extra spotlight. I think there's going to be a handful of players that are going to target Deshaun as well.
Yes. Oh, sure.
And another aspect, which we haven't even talked about yet, he's suspended the first 13 games of the season. They're going to be having a backup playing for the first 13 or 11 games of the season. Sorry. First 11 games of the season.
Yeah.
Jacoby Brissett, who was not very great.
Hasn't been great in a while.
Which is funny enough because I actually kind of liked him in New England too. In the one or two games he played when Jimmy went down. But yeah, I find them in a very difficult situation. I think that division is going to be incredibly tough for them to win or to stay competitive in. And if you don't have 6 wins, 11 games into the season by the time Deshaun gets back, I think that's a very, very hard hill to climb because now you're completely transitioning your offense to a new quarterback who, albeit is infinitely times more talented, but it is a completely different style of play as well. And people think that, Jacoby is some running quarterback, some guy like he is far from that. Yeah. Far from that.
Because of the stereotype there. But your biggest...
It really does too.
Your X factor is Nick Chubb.
Yes. Who has a lot of RB1 buzz this year as well.
Yeah. Which is warranted. I mean, he had a crazy year last year as well.
A little bit of over Kareem Hunt, wanting to get out of there this offseason for lack of touches, wanting to get paid. I don't see that being a massive hindrance. I still think Nick Chubb is going to be getting majority of the snaps there. And I think
more
that
now with
probably
Brissett.
More so now, obviously. And
they're going to be playing a safety.
He is going to be the focal point of that offense up until week 11. Yeah. So, going to be a very big year for him as well. But I am with you. I think they finished last in this division. I do not envision a scenario in which, I don't want to say I don't envision a scenario in which they make the playoffs. I just think it's very unlikely.
Where would you put them at as far as
win total?
Yeah,
I think they'll win about. See, the thing is, this division is hard.
I have them between 4 and 6.
Someone has to win 4 to 6 games.
Yeah,
I think it has to probably be them. But if they won 8 to 10, if they won like 7 to 8, I wouldn't be massively surprised. Just because I think there is talent on that team, especially defensively.
Yeah.
And the defensive line, Myles Garrett, Davion Clowney, some of the guys in the secondary are still really good too. I like both their safeties a lot. But we'll have to see. Someone's in this division has to, have a low win total, and they would be my pick. So
considering you have what is it? You have 2 against each team,
right?
So you got about 6 games just in the division.
Just in the division alone, right?
My brain went blank there, but you have 6 games versus Bengals, Steelers, and Ravens. Yeah, 1 home, 1 away for each. I just don't see it.
It's not very.
I don't trust in.
The thing is, and for every single team in that division, if you go 3-3 in your division games, that's an excellent record. Yeah, that is a phenomenal record. I envision them like 1-5, like 2, maybe 2-4. Maybe
they'll probably steal a game. Like
maybe they win the home Steeler game, and maybe they win one of the home Baltimore or Cincy games. But outside of that, I'm not envisioning a very, very good season.
I can agree with that.
So we have our second place team and our last place team now in this division. Got to fix the mics.
So so now we have. You're right. You have first and last pretty much designated.
Second and last for me. In terms of my projections for this year, first and last of last year, or first and third of last year. Baltimore finished last.
So
which is still insane to me.
Let's finish with Baltimore then.
Yeah.
So let's pick up with the Steelers. You have faith in Mitch?
I have faith in Mike Tomlin. single-handedly.
He's proven it every year.
Every single year, I look at that roster. I think it's not the best. I look at TJ Watt's ridiculous season last year. I think it's impossible to replicate that. I look at a lot of scheduling luck, a lot of the wins when they came, where they came, playing against some injured quarterbacks last year. I look at all of that. A lot of things went their way. A couple of things didn't go their way. And I still think they're winning 9 games this year. I do.
Ooh.
I do. Mike Tomlin has never finished under 500 in his career. I do not envision that happening now, and I certainly won't be the one to predict that now. So purely off that alone, I believe they win 9 games. I don't know if 9 wins will be enough to make the playoffs, which is why I don't want to say they're a lock to make the playoffs, because I think 10 might be the cutoff. But I think they'll be in and around that fight up until the last week of the season.
I don't think there's going to be a division that wins, but that has 3 teams coming out of it. I just don't. When we end up getting to the West, the AFC West, I think you have a better argument of 3 teams.
I cannot disagree more. That's funny.
I just don't see it in this division. I don't see the Steelers being good enough. I'm a huge Tomlin guy.
Yeah.
That's not what it is.
Yeah.
You need a quarterback. I'm sorry. That's what it comes down to.
I was actually leaning, I know I texted you this. I was leaning towards the Pittsburgh under previously to them announcing Mitch Trubisky as a starter, just because I was it just seemed like Kenny Pickett was going to be the guy they were just kind of going to roll with him, first round pick. Mitch being announced as starter. Huge on him, I'm not huge on any of their quarterbacks. Mitch being named the starter, though, does give me a little bit more confidence that they'll get off to a better start. I think it's really hard when you have lack of talent as a roster to then insert a rookie quarterback as well into that. It's a lot of just general adjustment. You're just learning just from game days, arriving to stadiums, specific security breach. Like, you're just learning as you go. It's just a lot extra that you have to think about when you are in that position, when you're first starting your career in the NFL. So I think to then put himself in the position to where he has to be the starting quarterback as well, I think expectations would be heightened. If you're saying that your first round quarterback won out the starting job and he's going to be your week 1 starter, I think that does put a little bit extra expectation on him.
Yeah.
And I also just think that in the past 4 or 5 years, we have seen with a lot of quarterbacks who sit their first year, it just tends to work out a little bit better for them.
Oh,
the Patrick Mahomeses of the world, the Lamar Jacksons of the world. I'm personally of the opinion that Josh Allen would have had the kind of hype and love he has around him much, much earlier if it wasn't for the fact that he was kind of thrown into that Buffalo fire so early on and had to kind of learn on the fly a lot. And a lot of people were really low on Josh Allen after his first year and a half. People forget that. Playoff loss, I think they lost to Houston, if I'm his second year in the playoffs. I think I could be wrong on that. They lost to someone. I remember his second year. They made the playoffs. They made it the last day of the season. They lost to someone. He had a horrible playoff game. I think it was Houston, but I could be wrong. A lot of people were low on Josh Allen going into not last year, but the year before that. And I do think that sitting as a rookie quarterback, when you are drafted that high, you have the weight of the world on you. I think that a year sitting behind somebody, or just a couple weeks sitting behind someone, is really beneficial, incredibly beneficial. Just to kind of get the hang of it, the flow of the offense, the style of the coach, getting to know kind of the expectations of the team, what you can, what you can't do. I think it's really important for a quarterback, and I think it does benefit them to sit a little bit to start off.
Interesting. You bring a lot of valid points. Again, the main thing for me is, do you have a quarterback?
Right.
And I don't trust Mitch, and I don't trust Kenny coming in year 1 and carrying this team to the playoffs. I don't see it. And that's why I can't give another wild card spot to someone in this division, excuse me.
I think their quarterback situation this year is better than their quarterback situation last.
Probably.
Yeah. That's kind of how I think about it. I don't necessarily trust or love any of those guys, but I have zero doubt in my mind either one of them are going to have a better season or would be better than what Roethlisberger did last year. So again, I've talked a lot.
Last year?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That was last year. So I talked a lot about this division, how I think positive regression is going to come with Baltimore. Yeah. I think Pittsburgh is the other team that is going to come with as well. I know I literally just spoke not too long ago about some things going their way last year. But I think just in terms of the quarterback position, I think that is one that has to improve just because it was so bad last year.
Can I give you a hot take?
Go for it.
I think the Steelers finished under 500 this year.
Under. You think this is the first year Tomlin doesn't win?
Yeah, it'll be a close one. It'll be like 8-9.
Like 8-7 wins, something like that.
I think there's going to be a couple games in this division that are going to be close, where the Bengals and the Ravens will separate themselves because they have the talent.
Yeah.
You know,
I still think it's a talented team, by the way. I still think Pittsburgh's a talented team. I don't think...
Not anything with them. It's just the fact that, like you said, the AFC is just so top heavy that you have to just have that little extra to get you up there. And I just don't see it. Now, if they made the wild card, would I be surprised? No.
Yeah.
No. You know, it's Mike Tomlin. He has... What's the record? What's the... I
think he's missed the playoffs maybe twice or 3 times max. Like,
no, but the last time he finished under 500.
He never has.
Okay,
he never has. Yeah, he never has.
That's the only thing, and that's why I say it's a hot take.
I think that's why I think he maybe missed the playoffs once, like twice, when he was like 9-7 or something like that. Maybe he had an 8-8 year, but I don't even think he has. I think every single year he's finished above 500, if I'm not mistaken. Oof. It's an insane record, incredible record.
All right, so give me your 4 in the North ranking.
Well, we didn't even get into the final team.
Oh my God, you're right, Baltimore.
Well, the team that I do predict winning the division. Do you want to
go first? Because I'm sure you're going to have a lot of interesting information to share.
The thing is, I have so many thoughts. I don't even know where to start. So, is there anything in particular that you?
All right, I'll go first, and then as I go, you can kind of go from there. Lamar's back.
Yep.
Huge.
Yep.
He's healthy. I mean, I think this is gonna be the first NFL season we don't really see a lot of COVID related stuff.
Yeah.
Like we have, because that obviously put him out for 3 games last year? 4 games?
So 2 games, and he came back, and then he got immediately sick after. And so he missed.
Yeah, it was a separate thing. Yeah, you're right. I confused that. Do you want me to ask you like question based, or do you want to kind of process your own information?
Whatever you feel. I have a lot of
I'll start with, do you think now with the current climate of quarterbacks, right? All things considered, as well as your wide receiver situation, because we're going to talk about that too, because that's, woo, in comparison to other elite quarterbacks.
Love Rashad Bateman.
Do you think that Lamar can be back in MVP conversations?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
And I think he likely will. He's going to have to be if this team's going to be successful, actually, in my opinion.
Balance of throwing and running? Or do you think it's...
Definitely a mix of both. Okay. Offensive coordinator Greg Roman, someone who I have slandered to the moon and back over the past couple of years. He said multiple times throughout OTAs and training camp that Lamar's throwing the ball the best he ever has. That he's going to be able to open up the playbook for this. That has annoyed a lot. It's annoyed a lot of Ravens fans. Maybe they'll run 8-yard slants instead of 5-yard slants this time.
MVP, but now we can open up the fucking playbook.
Maybe it'll be screens to the receivers instead of screens to the fullbacks and tight ends this time.
Watching that Dolphins game last year when we went to Hard Rock to see them play. My God!
It's hard to tell on TV how poorly run or how poor some of the play calling is with this team sometimes. When you see it in person, it is shocking.
What were they rushing? Staggering. They were rushing like fucking 7 guys, like 6 straight plays, and you just kept calling screens or just
screens
bullshit,
to the fullback,
bullshit
to the tight
slants, just like these weird fucking bubble plays for no reason.
It's actually a little bit of a running joke. So our fullback Patrick Ricard, he's like a All-Pro, Pro Bowl fullback, really good player. Obviously, I say that with a pinch of salt because there's maybe 7 fullbacks in the entirety of the league. So it was a running joke within kind of Ravens Twitter that some people were upset when he made the roster, because we know that if he's on the team, he's going to be on the team. He's going to be heavily involved in everything that we do.
Fucking abysmal.
But anyways, going back, obviously, I say that a lot of that tongue in cheek and joking, but
not really though, because there's pain there.
There is a lot of pain in there, and a lot of the slander has been warranted as well. It's particularly, I'm looking at you, Greg Roman. I'm looking right at you, Greg Roman.
There's nothing like sitting next to you while you watch that happen live. I just remember being like, I feel so bad for you. Like, this Miami team was fucking awful, and your defense was also giving up like weird fucking plays.
The thing is that, like, I know we're completely going off script here, but that game has still rings in my mind.
It's scarring for me, and I hate both. I don't even care about both teams. Defensively,
they just gave up big play after big play. It wasn't even like they were like consistently like 9-10 play drives down the field. We just couldn't get them off the field. We couldn't stop the running. It was like 3rd and 13. Oh, they hit an 18-yard slant to whoever. They got this guy on a hitch. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, our defense is putting themselves in good positions, and then just not being able to get off the field on 3rd down. So anyways, moving on from that game. I think Lamar is going to have an MVP type year for this team to be successful. And I say that more so not because of the lack of talent, just because everything is just so geared around him that if the team is going to be successful, a lot of it is going to be because of him.
Yeah.
But yes, I do have a lot of faith in him kind of getting back to that point, and if not better as well, too.
Yeah.
Especially throwing the ball.
How are you feeling about your receivers these days?
Say that one more time?
How are you feeling about your receivers?
Not great.
Because that kind of is Lamar's success to an extent.
Yeah, not
right?
great. I am very high on Rashad Bateman. I've said that a lot last year. Incredibly unfortunate. He literally missed the first, I think, 5 or 6 games through injury. Came back. I think he played 2 games Lamar before Lamar got hurt. Rashad got hurt again, and then by the time he came back, it was just Tyler Huntley for the rest of the year. So didn't really get to play consistently. He's flashed a lot. I think he's a guy who has the talent to be very, very productive in this offense. Now, are we going to be throwing the ball to our receivers enough for it to matter? Don't particularly think so. I still think we're going to be running a lot of power formation. Going to be running a lot of 2 tight end sets. We sometimes run 2 running back sets where we remember last year we would have Latavius Murray and Le'Veon Bell on the field at the same exact time. So I still think there's going to be some interesting scheming from that point. But I think that this is the glaring weakness of the team is the wide receiving core. And luckily, they have arguably the best tight end in football, or one of the 3 best tight ends in football, to kind of help make up for the lack of weapons on the receiving core. So
yeah, and I feel like that's always something. Yeah. Ravens have always had
good tight ends,
great tight ends.
That's
just one, like historically great thing about your organization
Sharp,
is you
Dennis
can
Pitta, Todd Heap, they've always had good tight ends. So, and obviously now rookie Isaiah Likely, who had an insane preseason, was drafted I think in the 4th round out of Coastal Carolina. So those guys who kind of play for small schools, put up big numbers, tend to slip a little bit.
Yeah.
I think he's like the 7th or 8th favorite for rookie of the year, offensive rookie of the year right now, which surprised me for a 4th round guy to be ranked that high. Surprised me quite a bit.
For sure.
But I think you could just see in his preseason, some players just have it. They just have it.
Yeah.
And he's huge. He's incredibly quick and sharp in his routes. Really, really good hands. And the main thing that he's going to bring to this offense, I think he's going to play a lot, first of all, is contested catches, which is not something that we've had in ages. Even something that Mark Andrews struggles with. Mark's really good at getting open. He's really good at, run after the catch. But 50-50 balls, not his forte. It's just not his forte. And that is an area that I think Isaiah Likely is going to help this offense out in a lot. Get J.K. Dobbins back. Get Gus Edwards back.
Big time,
they had their entire running back room last year was out. Justice Hill, their 3rd running back, was out too. He's also back. They had Le'Veon Bell starting football games from last year. Like I feel like that has to explain a lot of
sure.
kind of where the state of this team was injury wise.
Sure.
So I've mentioned it 3 times. I'm going to say it again. I think positive regression is just bound to happen with this team. I think it's just bound to. Everything that could have went wrong last year went wrong.
Agreed. Which is why I also have that argument about the Bengals as far as
things going in their favor.
Things going in their way and then peaking at the right time.
Right.
Being the playoffs. We're back. I think we're back to the point of like Lamar just being like, "Where's Mark Andrews? All right, fuck it." I genuinely think we are. Now, obviously, I mean, who knows, right?
Yeah.
Who knows what sort of scheme? Because we're gonna
have to see
open the playbook,
open the playbook a little bit more.
Fuck out of here.
I think the main thing, a lot of fans are mad that we didn't kind of bring in someone to replace Hollywood. I think that the Ravens have drafted more receivers than any team over the last 3 years. They just all happen to be like in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round.
Mm-hmm.
I think this year you're going to see a lot of those guys start to get an opportunity. The Devin Duvernays of the world, the James Prochet's of the world, the Talon Wallaces of the world, who actually like a lot too, Talon Wallace. They brought in DeMarcus Robinson, who was in the Chiefs last year, speedy guy. So, it's a lot of ifs, it's a lot of maybes, it's a lot of we'll sees.
Yeah.
But I just think that they have that guy at quarterback. They have Ronnie Stanley back at left tackle, who is massive. Didn't play both these last 2 years. Potentially was never going to be able to play again. It was that serious of an ankle injury.
Oh.
And I don't expect him to play much early in the season. He actually practiced for the first time, I think 2 days ago at time of recording. So I'm not expecting him, but I think just having another body And simply not having Alejandro Villanueva is going to be a massive bonus because he was the worst offensive lineman I've ever seen in my life.
He's your version of my Eric Flowers.
He was your Eric Flowers. He was worse than Eric Flowers statistically, by the way. I just want to say that. And he was playing left tackle. So
I believe Flowers is in Jacksonville now.
He's playing guard as well. So yeah.
Whatever. Yeah, okay. Now let me ask you all. We can talk about your defense. You have arguably top 5 defense in the league.
Yep.
Which I think is what holds you afloat. I think your offensive struggles.
I think Baltimore's going to have the best secondary in football this year.
Okay.
I think they just have so much in that secondary, and they're all so different from one another that I think they're going to be able to do so many things that's going to be able to confuse defenses.
Yeah, scheme-wise, you're talking about.
Scheme-wise, particularly, yes. I think another thing, and you as a Giants fan, that you got our defensive coordinator, Wink Martindale. Very good defensive coordinator. I think that he is a guy that after a couple of years can burn out a little bit just because it's such a blitz-heavy scheme. You tend to figure it out a little bit after you play against it a few times. I think that happened last year. I think that's kind of why you saw Baltimore struggle in both Cincy games. They struggled against Pittsburgh. They struggled against everyone in their division last year, really. I think that was a big reason for that too. You just need a change schematically a little bit when it's not happening for them. So they brought in Mike McDonald, who was their defensive lines coach, was the Michigan defensive coordinator last year under Jim Harbaugh. So, John gets one over his brother. John gets one over his brother.
That's funny.
So we'll see how that's gonna work. I just think from a talent standpoint, that secondary is so loaded. They have 4 or 5 good safeties. They have 3 elite corners. Yeah. I think it's going to be a really, really good defensive year for Baltimore if they get to stay healthy.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. We'll end on this because if we don't start speeding up, this is going to be a 5-hour podcast. Do you think that this team can have any sort of edge over Chiefs, Bills? I have the Titans right now, but I'm going to be honest with you. I'm just going to go ahead and say fuck the Titans.
Titans is probably just more so because they were the 1 seed last year, but no.
Well, it's just their division.
Yeah.
They're going to be in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's just how it is.
I think Baltimore's edge is their quarterback. I think Lamar on any given game can be the best player on the field. Any given game.
That's a hot take. I disagree.
Any given week, Lamar Jackson can be the best player on the field. Any given week.
I don't know about that one.
I have zero doubt about that.
You're taking Lamar over Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes?
It's not that I'm saying that he's a better player than any of those. I think, again, it's any given week, Lamar can have a better game than one of those guys. He is so dynamic as a runner that any given week, he is such a massive threat that he can be the best player on the football field. That's kind of what I'm saying.
That's an interesting faith.
I don't think he's a better player than Patrick Mahomes. I don't think he's a better player than Josh Allen. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the reason why I think that they could, I'm not necessarily predicting they will, is because any given game, they could potentially have the best player on the court or on the field.
On the field, yeah.
So that's kind of why I think that they potentially can, and I'm not necessarily predicting they win. I actually don't think they're going to get out of the conference. I still have the Chiefs winning it this year, which I'm sure we'll get into playoff predictions in a little bit.
Yeah, we're going to speed through the fucking AFC South.
Speed through the NFC a little bit.
No, the AFC South.
Oh, yeah,
we're going to blink through this because I fucking hate this division. But real quick,
yeah.
So then we're in agreement. Ravens, Bengals, Steelers, Browns.
Correct.
I don't think anybody in the world has a different argument.
I think the only disagreement would be I think the Steelers. I think the streak continues. They finish at least 500, if not above. Well, you can't finish 500 because it's 17.
I was going to say,
I think they win 9 games.
Yeah.